whether you are a beginner or experienced programmer. This 1-hour course of Python will teach a lot of concepts. I would suggest follow through the complete video and comment if you have some questions. Let us open browser and search for PyCharm. PyCharm is from JetBrains. So, click on this link. This is the professional version, which is paid one. So, let us scroll down and in the bottom to see Choose Edition. There is a table with comparison of Professional and Community Edition. And you can press Download on the Community Edition, which is free and built on open source. So, after the download is done, you can click or go to Downloads folder and double-click to start installation. Press Next. Next again if the destination folder is OK. Then you can select for desktop shortcut and select the checkbox to update bin path, which is important. And click Next. Install, which will take a minute or two. It asks for reboot. I suggest to reboot it. After the reboot, open PyCharm from desktop. It will ask from import settings as you are new. You can leave Do Not Import and press OK. It will open PyCharm IDE, where you can click on New Project. You can give the name My First Project and click Create. Forget about the other options as of now. Here is the project structure. Right-click on the top folder. New Python file. Give the name as main. It can be anything. And write print and hello world in double quotes. Don't worry about the syntax. And click on Run button to execute. Let's start with the variables. So for example, there is this hard-coded value and a number. So you cannot directly use this in a program. So we need something to hold this information, that is, store and manage data. For that, we can create a variable. For example, here name is a variable and age is a variable which holds some information basically. So now if you want to declare a variable, there are certain rules you need to follow always. Here name is a valid variable. Similarly, if I want to write name 123, so this is also a valid variable name. Okay, if I want to use two words. For example, last name. This is hard to read. So what we can do is we can use underscore in between. So this is the only valid symbol you can use. Similarly, you can start with underscore itself while creating a variable. So these are different ways that the variable can be. 123 name, this is not a valid variable. Variables cannot start with the number. So if I execute it, you can see that this particular declaration is invalid. So to remember, you cannot start with numbers or symbols except underscore. Now let's start with data types. So data types are the kind of value a variable can hold. For example, name. So in this case you can see that Alice is a string, so which can be stored either in double quotes or it can be stored using single codes. Similarly, if you want to store an integer value, you can directly write the number without quotes. That is int type. If in case height, you can also store decimals, which is a float type. Similarly, we have other type, which is a boolean. For example, is gamer whether he is a gamer or not. So either you can store true or false. So these are the four basic data types: string, integer, float, and boolean. There are different data types like list, tuples, and dictionaries, which we will look later. So for example, if you want to know what's the type of a particular variable, there's a method called type, so you can use type and you can give variable name, for example. So if I execute this, you can see this type of the name is string. Similarly, if I give age here and re-execute it, it will be int. So you can use this type method to determine what the type of this particular variable in case you need it. The print statement in Python is a powerful tool to display information to users. Print Alice in a double quotes as hard-coded value. Execute it and see the output. Print name, where you can print the value present in the variable. Print name : variable name, you can print hard-coded and variable value with a space. Name: Alice has been printed. You can also print multiple hard-coded and value from variable using comma-separated print statement. You can also use formatted print statement which starts with F and double quotes, where we write the string we want and also variable with curly braces. Where in the output, the values from the variables are printed. Now, let us start with input function which allows the program to receive input from users. So, the syntax would, let us declare a variable equal to input. In the parenthesis, we can write a text which we want to display to the user. And write the print statement with variable. Let us execute and see what happens. So, it shows the name which we have entered as an input. Let us continue arithmetic operations. Let us create two variable number 1 equals 10 and number 2 equals 3. You can add them. You can subtract them. Multiply them. Divide them. Also with double slash, it is called as floor division. And modulus operator to print the remainder from the division operator. You can see the output of all. See here, for the floor division it is 3 as the actual value 3.333. Also, as remainder it is 1 when 3 divides 10. Also, I want to explain the operator, precedence. For example, let me write some print statement with 10 plus 3 multiply by 3. What do you think the answer will when I execute it? See, it is 19. So the first operator which is happening is multiply and then it is plus. So 9 plus 10. If I keep brackets here, what will happen? So you can see that it will take the parenthesis first and then multiply. That will 13 multiply 3. Let us do another example and I would request you to guess it. 10 plus 2 double asterisk 3 multiple 4, divide 2, subtract 5. So what's the expected output? Can you guess it? So first of all, the parenthesis is the highest priority and the second priority would go to the power symbol and then multiplication and division in, and then later it is plus and minus. So in this case, it will execute exponential which will be 8. Then multiply 8 and 4, it will be 32, then divided by 2 which will be 16. 16 plus 10 it is 26 and minus 5. So if I execute this, it should print 21. So this is the operator precedence. Let's start with the type conversion. Type conversion, also known as typecasting, is the process of converting one data type into another. It allows flexibility and data compatibility. So let us consider a print statement which is 10 plus 5. If I execute it, it prints 15. What happens? One of them is a string, so you can see that it throws an error because the operand will not support. What will happen if both of them are string? Then it prints 105, which is a concatenation operator. It doesn't matter if it is 10 even though it's numerical value, but in double quotes it is string always. So if it is hello, so you can see it will print hello 5 because it's just a string. So now let's take an example to take two inputs, two numbers from an end user and print the sum of it. So I will declare number 1 variable and input enter your number. Now copy it and second input it will be number 2 as an variable. So now the print statement will be number 1 plus number 2. What happens if I execute this? It asks for the input, so let me enter 10 and the second input be 5. You can see here it prints 105. It should be 15, but it is 105. That means this number 1 and number 2 are strings. So this input by default it takes the value as a string. So what happens if I want to really do an operation on integers? So I need to convert this number 1 into integer. For that you can write a function int, and in the bracket you can pass this variable name and assign it to the number 1 itself, so that it converts the string to integer and overwrites the existing one. Similarly, we will do it for the second variable. Now, if I execute this, you can see let me enter 10 and the other one will be 5, so you can see 15. It works exactly as required. Now let us re-execute and see what will happen if I try to enter 10.5. So, number 1 will be 10.5 and number 2 to 5. See, there's a problem when converting the integer because the first one is with decimals. So for that, we need to typecast the value to float. So we use a function float to convert the value with decimals. And if I execute it now and give it 10.5 and 5, it shows 15.5. So it is important what's the kind of input you are taking from the end user, and based on that you need to convert it. So instead of writing it here, you can directly write it here. Also float and keep the input function in this. If I write both as float, so now I can remove this. And if I try to print it, so I can see 10.5 and 21.5, it runs 32, and this is a float number because both of them are float. Now I want to output as a sum equal to the value. So for that purpose I can write sum in double quotes and comma. So now if I execute it and enter number 1 as 10.5, number 2 as 12.5, which shows output as sum 23. But there is another option also instead of comma. You can write plus. And you can put number 1 plus number 2 in brackets. What will happen now? Let us execute and see. For example, we enter 10.5 and 12.5. But you can see it throws an error because one of them is string and the other one of them is float. So both of them it cannot concatenate. So for that purpose what we can do is after the operation is done we can also convert it to string back. So for that str can be used. If I execute it now and check 10.5 and 23, it brings 33.5. So this is how you can convert either integer to string, string to float, float to string again. Now let us start with the comparison operators. Comparison operators are used to compare values and return Boolean results, true or false, based on the comparison. As a sample, 10 greater than 5. So for example 10 less than equal to 5. The symbols in between are comparison operators. Likewise, we have equal to, for that we use double equal to symbol. And not equal. Greater than, equal to, less than, equal to, greater than, less than. So these are the comparison operators. For example, let us see now what will happen if we print the value of this operation. Let us a print statement and execute it. So this answer would be either it is true or false. You can see that it is true. What happens if we write less than equal to? Let us just replace this. It will return false. Do you think it works only for numbers? No, it's not only for numbers. You can also try it for strings. For example, let us change this to hello. And hello. And execute it. You can see it is true. But what happens if I replace capital H with small h? It is false because it is case sensitive. Why do you need these comparison operators? I'll show you an example little later. So let's start with logical operators. Logical operators are used to combine conditional statements and evaluate multiple conditions simultaneously. For example, this simple condition you've already seen, it returns true. There are three logical operators. It is not operator, or operator, and operator. Let us see how will it work. So, not is used for single condition and or, and are used for multiple conditions. Let us see what not operator can do. So when something is true it returns false, and when something is false it returns true. For example, this is true. So, I write not here. Let us keep the logic in brackets. What will happen? So this statement is true, but when I apply a not, it returns false. That's the use of it. Similarly, what will happen if I use I and a? Write 10 greater than 5, which is true, and 20 less than 10, which will be false mathematically. So what will happen in this case? You can execute it, it returns false. Even though first condition is true here. Because this condition is false. So that the reason, the entire statement becomes false. So, let us see what and will do. If both the conditions are true, then it returns true. If either of them is false, then it returns false. So, that's operation of an operator. Unless both of them are true, it will never written true. In other cases it returns false. Let us start with or operator. Let us revert changes to 20 less than 10. So, the first condition is true and the second one is false. And let us change into or. See, it returns true. Because for or operator, if either of them is true then it returns true. If both are false then only it will return false. Before going into conditional statements, I would like to revise about the operators. Let us go with comparison operators, for example 10 greater than 5 and which returns true. But here, these are hard-coded values. For example, consider that I want to change the value every time. For that, I'll declare a variable called temp. And assign a value 30 here. Now, I will replace the 10 with the variable temp. So now, the comparison happens between a variable and a value, and here it is true. What if I change the value in the temp to 4? It shows false as the output. So depending upon the value in this variable, this print statement acts. So let us remember this and start with the conditional statements. For example, let's take an input from an end user, which is temperature, and if it is above 30 then we should print that it's swimming time. So, for that first we need to declare a variable, and let's take the input. And also enter the temperature. Now, it is time to write the conditional statement. For that, we will start with keyword if. And write a condition, that is, temp greater than 30. After the condition, we should keep colon. And also, there is this indentation. Or space which should be there. And write a print statement with messaged swimming time. We can also write another print statement with messaged next. So whatever you write after this colon and with this indentation. These statement belongs to this if condition. These two statements will only execute if the temperature is above 30. So if I write a print statement down here, this statement is not linked to if condition at all. This will be printed always when we execute the program. Let us execute the program. Enter 25 and press enter. See, we got an error. Why? Can you guess or answer? As explained earlier, input will always take string. And here we are trying to compare string with integers, so that's the reason. So let's write float to typecast as the temperature can be entered in decimals. Good. Let us execute the program and enter 25. These two statements have not been printed, but the third statement is printed. It is because this doesn't have any condition, but these two statements are under if condition. Both of these statements will print only if the temp is above 30. Let us execute and see. Let us enter 31. You can see that both the statements are printed and then the outside statement is also printed. So, this is how you can write a conditional statement. But let us remove this print statement. Re-execute the program and let us enter 25 this time and see what happens. It is bad that it doesn't show any message. This is not good. So, for that we have something called as else statement. We can add it here with a colon, and also to state that the else statement cannot be written without if. Let's print a message that enjoy your day. Let us execute and enter 20. You can see that the condition will be false. So, the execution skips the below part and executes the else block and prints the message enjoy your day. Let us re-execute. And if I give 31, the condition is true and it prints both the print statements. It's a conditional statement if the condition is true. These block will execute and else block will be skipped. One more thing, you cannot write else statement without if statement. It shows error if you try to execute it. Let us revert back. Now what happens if I want to have some other condition? For example, if the temperature is below 30 and above 20, then print go for a walk. We will leave the else part as it. So, the first condition, if it is above 30, we can leave the current print statement and remove the below one. And the second condition is above 20 and below 30, which means we need to print something if it is less than 20. So, we will leave the else part as it is. So, for the second condition check, we have something called else if. In Python, we write as elif. The temperature is greater than 20 and colon. Let us write print statement. Don't worry, I will explain the execution process in detail. This should be enough and no need to mention that it should below 30. Because the execution of if condition is top to bottom. It will check the first condition and if it is true, it executes the below statements and will not check other condition. And it will exit the conditional statement. If the value is something in between like 25, then it check first condition and it returns false. So, it continues to second condition. And when it is true, it will print and exit the condition. If none of the conditions are satisfied, then the control goes to else statement and it will be printed, even though it is written as below 30 and above 20. It is not required to check both the conditions, as the control goes second statement only if the temp is below 30. It is time to execute the program. Enter 31. And see, it prints swimming time. And re-execute and enter 25. It prints go for a walk. Else when it is 18. It says oh enjoy your day. Also, if condition can have multiple conditions using logical operators like and or. Here is the another example, where let us also check if it is raining. Check if the temperature is above 30 and it is not raining, then we can print as swimming time. If the temperature is less than 5 or it is raining, then we can use her to stay indoor. Else we can print enjoy your day. Let us take another input from the user. Declare a variable raining and assign input. And let us ask user that is it raining? Yes or no? Once we have both the inputs, let us adjust the if statement by adding and the condition raining equal to no. So, if both the conditions are true, then the print statement will be executed. Similarly, let us adjust the second condition to temp less than 5 and raining equal to yes. Also change the text in the print statement to stay indoors. Let us execute the program now. Enter temperature as 35 and raining as no. Now, try to understand logic manually so both the statements will be true. So, it should print the statement. See, it is. Now, let us try another sample input. Enter temperature as 35 and raining as yes. So, if you see the logic, temp greater than 30 is true but the raining equal to no is false. So it will go to next condition to check. And in the second condition, as temp less than 35 is false, the entire statement will be false. So, it will go to the else part and prints the last statement. Let us try another sample. The temperature is 0 and raining is yes. The second condition is true. So it prints stay indoors. But as per our question, the second condition should be or. Let us try another sample. Let us enter temperature as 35 and raining yes. So, here the first condition raining equal to no will be false. So it will go to next if statement. Here, the temp less than 5 is false but raining equal to yes is true. As per or logical operator, if one of them is true, the entire condition will be true. So it prints a stay indoors. For example, consider, we have 3 print statements 1, 2 and 3. So, do we really need 3 statements to print 3 numbers? For that, we have something called as loop, where we can write once and execute them repetitively. Let us go through while loop. Let us declare variable count and initialize with 1. We should while keyword to write while loop. So while and then condition should be given. In this case, we can write count less than equal to 10, and write the print statement, count. So, if this condition is satisfied, the statements inside the loop will be executed. We should have some indentation so that this statement will be in while block. So, the count get prints in statement. But we should add another statement, that is to increment the count value by 1. If we execute it, you can see that it prints 1 to 10 numbers below. Let us now see how does the while loop executes. So initially, the count has value 1. The condition is checked, that is 1 less than equal to 10. That condition is true and goes inside the loop. And prints the value. And also count will be increment to 2. And then again the condition 2 less than or equal to 10 is true. So it prints 2 and increments to 3. Likewise it continues until it prints 10 and count will 11. So when 11 less than or equal to 10, it is false. And the loops exits. Likewise, we have another loop which is called as for loop. And it is used when we know how many times the loop should execute. So, let us write for count in range 1 to 11. Here range is a function which takes the starting number and ending number. And colon. And print I. Let us see the difference between while and for. In while, we have to increment the value manually. But in for, it happens automatically. And also, here condition is in built present. That is, it executes starting from 1 until it less than 11, that is 10. So, the variable I will be initialized to 1 and print 1 and then increments to 2 and prints. See the result, it prints from 1 to 10. But here it is 11. As I said already, the condition will be I less than 11. Let us explore more about the range function. We can pass another parameter here as step. For example, let us add 2. So, it starts from 1. Executes until the variable I is less than 11. And the increment will be 2 instead of 1. See the output. It prints 1, 3, 5 so on and stops when I is 11. We can do the same in while by changing this. Let me take an example of another usage of while with a sample program. Let us take the names from user until he wants to quit. Let us create a variable name and take the input. Enter the name. And let us print. If you execute and see, we can enter name. And it prints. And the program stops. But we want to ask the name again until user types quit. So, let us edit the input message. So, when user enter quit instead of a name, then the program should stop. Add while true. If you observe here, we have written true. That means this condition is always and loop will execute forever. This is not good. And also do some indentation to keep both the statements under loop. As I said, this will execute forever. Let us introduce a conditional statement here. That is, if name equal to quit. We write break. Break is a keyword which helps to exit the loop. Let us try again. Enter Alice. And you can see it prints Alice. As we have a loop, it asks for the input again. As soon as user enter the input, the if condition check if it is equal to quit. If yes, it executes break. If not, it prints name. Let us enter Bob. See, it prints and asks for input again. Now let us type quit. And see, the program terminates. So, break will help you to break out of the loop when you use true in the condition. Let us start with functions now. Functions in programming are named blocks of reusable code that performs a specific task. They allow you to break down complex programs into smaller and manageable parts. So, first we will start with the function definition. So we start with def in Python. After that we have to give a function name, in this case, greet in parenthesis and colon. And let us write print statement. So, the functionality of this function is to print hello. Don't forget about the indentation. So, if we try to execute this function, it will not return anything. The reason is we should call this function. Let us call this function from outside. So, we write here. Now, when we execute this program, it prints hello. Now, let us say that I want to print hello and some name. Let us write hello Alice. And when we execute, it prints hello Alice. But you see it is hard-coded. The purpose of this function shouldn't be hard-coded. But it should take some name as input and should print hello name. So, for that we should write parameters. Which is name in this case, which is nothing but a variable. So, it prints hello and whatever value is present in name. So, let us add this parameter in the print statement and remove Alice. Now, while calling the function, we will pass Alice as input. And see, Alice will assigned as a value to the variable name in the above function. And the value will be printed as we have written variable in the print statement. You can see the output as hello Alice. And, instead of hard-coded value while calling function, we can take input from the user and pass it. So, whatever value which is taken as input is assigned to user underscore name, and this will be passed to the function parameter name. You can execute the program and see that it asks for input. And it prints hello, Bob. So here, you can see that the value in username is passed to input parameter name. There is also a possibility that function can take multiple parameters. And we will adjust the print statement as well. Age is and the variable or the input parameter age. Let us execute this program. So, it asks for a name and we will give Alice and press enter. Ideally, it should call the function, but you can see the error. So the function definition of greet is expecting for two input parameters, but herein while calling we are passing only one value. So let us pass the age as hard-coded value. And execute. See, it works. Let us see about variable scope. Let us declare a variable isGamer and set it to true. And see what happens if we try to print isGamer outside of this function. It shows as highlighted and as error. But let us execute and see. If you can see here, it says that isGamer is not defined even though it is present in the function. So you should understand that isGamer is scope is only valid inside the function, not outside. Similarly, it applies for the input parameters. The scope is limited to the functions. Now, let us see some functions with strings. Let us declare a variable text and assign a value I like apples. So, if you want to know the length of the string, then we can use a function len. You can see it prints 13. We use .lower with parenthesis to convert the text in lowercase. Similarly, you can use .upper with parenthesis to print uppercase text. And there is also a replace function which can be used to replace a certain part of the text with another. For example, we will try to replace the apples with bananas. So it will find apples and replace with bananas. In case if you want to split the text, you can .split and in parenthesis you should mention with what you want to split. Here we are using space. It returns output as list. And also, if you would like to get the start letter of the text, you can use square brackets and pass the index 0. So, the index will start 0, not 1. If you see, index starts with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. So, if you want to retrieve starting letter, you should use 0. So, the print statement with text of 0 will print I. And if you want to fetch substring, you can give starting position of the string and ending position +1 to get it. See, if you give 2 to 5, it will only print lick but not E, which is in the 5 position. So if you want like to print it, you should give 2 to 6. We have some more function like strip, which will remove the space around the text. Let us write text.strip in the print statement. So you can see the output that there is no space around the text which we have above. Similarly, we have our strip to remove the space from the right side of the text. We'll strip to remove left side space text, but there is still space in the right. Let us talk about lists now. Lists are ordered collections of items enclosed in square brackets. They can contain elements of different types. For example, let us create a variable numbers and we will assign 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as values for this list. Let us print first number using numbers 0 in the square bracket. As explained in the strings concept, 0 is the starting index. We can get subset of list using colon. Let us try with 1 colon 3. You can see the output 2, 3. 1 position refers to second element and 3 minus 1, that is second position, is 3 in the list. We use append function to add a value to the list. Numbers.append 6. Execute and see the output that the number 6 is added to the list at the end. We can also remove certain value with remove function. That is numbers.remove of 3. Now, you can see in the output that 3 is not present in the list. In case you want to insert a value in a certain position, we can use insert function with index where you want insert and the value. You can see in the output that Alice is inserted in position 1. So, 1 is in the 0th position. So Alice will come into first position and 2 will be moved to second position. Similar to strings, you can find the length of the array. So we have 5 elements at the start and we have inserted extra 1. Let us write len and keep the numbers as parameter. And see the output is 6. Also, in case you want, go through the list of values one by one. You can use for loop. For in give a dummy variable name, which can be anything. And in and write the list variable here. And print the given variable name. So, the number variable will be assigned with the first element and prints 1. Next time it assigns the second elements and prints 2. Execution continues until end of the loop. And prints all numbers. In case you want to external package or modules, we need to import them first. For that, we will write import statement. For example, I want to use Pygame module. So, we can write import Pygame. And see it is highlighted means the library is not installed. For that in PyCharm, we can hover on the module name and see that it shows a tooltip saying install package Pygame. So, you can directly click on this. The other way would be to go to this 3 dots and click on Python Packages option. And search for Pygame. And click on Install button here. And also select for the version you want to install. Note that, in case you don't see this option, the 3 dots, you can check if it is already available at the bottom. So now let us start with dictionary objects. Show dictionary objects are something which store data with key-value pairs. In list, you know that you can store data of any data type. For example, an integer at position 1 and a string at a second position. It's not recommended way of doing that. It's suggested to use dictionaries which stores key-value pairs. And also, list can store multiple dictionary objects. So let us start with declaration of variable so-called student. We should assign values to the variable within curly braces. Now, let's create a key called name. And we should keep colon and assign a value Alice. You should keep comma and create a second key age. And value of 20. So you can store string. An integer. Let us create third key which is courses and assign a list as a value. Which will be math and science. So this is a dictionary object which contains keys and values. Now, for example, I want to print name. How can we print it? So let's access the object student and within square brackets and in single quotes, you can give you the key. And just execute. It prints the value. Similarly, if I want to access the courses, you can just give courses here. You can execute and see the output of courses. For example, I want to modify the age of the student from 20 to 25. So let us print age first, which prints 20. To modify, just take the object again and give the key in square brackets, in single quotes. And equal to assign a value 25. Now as you execute and see the age is modified to 25. Now, for example, I would like to add new key. So there are only 3 keys here. But I want to add the another one. So let's add new key gender. Even though the key gender is not present in the dictionary object, it will add this key value pair. Now if I try to print student, so you can see we'll have the gender also. In case, I want to delete for example age, key and value from this object. You can just write del and key in square brackets with the object. So now if I execute it, you can see the age is not present. And for example, instead of printing the object, I want to print or go through each key value pair in details. So for that we have to write a for loop. Let us clear this code here. Let us start with for, which is a keyword, and declare variable. So here I will declare a key, it can be any name, and we want to print key colon value. So that SS the reason I will have another variable declared which is value. And in, write the object itself. From the student? And what do you want to access? There is a method called items. I need to write items. Now just write the formatted print statement with key value in curly braces. So now if I try to execute it, it prints all the keys and values separately. This is very important concept because most of the databases, the non-SQL databases, store the information in this format in the backend. So, you should know how to retrieve the values or modify the dictionary objects. The try block in Python is used for exception handling. It allows you to define a block of code where exceptions errors might occur. And we can handle those exceptions gracefully without causing the entire program to crash. Let us start with a sample program where we should take integer input and 10 should be divided by this number. Let us declare a variable number and write int, input, enter the number. Int is used to typecast the input to number. Now let us write result equal to 10 by num. And print result. Let us execute the program. Enter 5. See the output is 2. Now let us re-execute and enter web instead of a number. See, it terminates the program and shows an error, which most of the users don't understand. This is because we need the user to print an integer. So, we need to handle this error gracefully and show a proper message. We can write tricolon and move the block of code in which there is a chance of exception to be occurred. And write except value error, which is a standard one, and also see in the error message below. And write print statement and ask to user to enter valid number. So this except block will help to catch the error. Let us execute this program and give web again. See, the error has gone and we are printing an proper message to the user. Now, let me re-execute this program and enter the number 0. See, another error, which is 0 division error. Let us write another except to handle error. So, except 0 division error and print statement with message, error cannot divide by 0. Let us execute again and see if the output message is okay. Now, we will write else block and try, which will be executed when there are no exceptions and entire try block is executed. So, else colon and move the print statement from top to here. Let us execute and see if everything is okay. See that the output is there. Now, we have another keyword called finally. And whatever written in this block will be executed always. It doesn't matter if there is an error or a result. This statement is useful, for example, to close a file which is an open. Let us do the final execution and see it works.
Enter number 0. And see both the messages are print. Similarly for proper result. The finally block is executed.
Let us talk about tuples. Tuples is an ordered and immutable collection of elements. It has a lot of advantages that it is more efficient and more performant than list. And tuple as a concept of unpacking. Tuple unpacking allows for concise assignment of values to multiple variables in a single line. For creating a tuple, let's create a variable myTuple for example, and we should use parentheses. For list we are using square brackets, and here we have to use parentheses. Now we can give multiple values here. That is apples, bananas, oranges. Let us print the values first and see. You can see the tuple was printed. But if you want to access a value in a particular position, it is similar to a list, you can use square brackets and the position. Position always starts with 0. So, as I gave 1, it prints the output as bananas. 1 refers to the second element. Consider that I want to change a value of tuple at a particular position. For example, I want to update value of the position 1 to kiwi. See what happens if I try to print. You can see that it throws error. So tuples are immutable in nature means you cannot update a particular element. Updating an element in a particular position is not possible. But if you want to update entire tuple, yes, you can update the entire tuple, but not individual elements. Similar to list, we can also store values of multiple data types in tuple. This is advantage because it is useful when you want to return multiple value from a function and unpack it back to variables. As shown here, we have string and int in the tuple without a problem. Now, let us take an example to show how multiple values can be packed in a function and then unpacked into your multiple variables in a single line. So let us define a function. Operations which takes input as number 1 and number 2. And I want to calculate some of them which number 1 plus number 2, and also I want to calculate difference which is number 1 minus number 2. And also, let us calculate multiplication, number 1 multiplied by number 2. Now I want to return as output as a tuple. So, let us keep it in parentheses. You can see that we are trying to return 3 values in one return statement. Let us declare a variable my_tuple to store the output from the function operations. Let us pass 10 and 5. So number 1 is 10 and number 2 is 5. Let us directly print this tuple and see what happens. It just prints the values 15, 5, 50. But I want to unpack the result into different variables for different purposes. So let me declare 3 variables, that is add, sut and multi. And equal to my_tuple, which is the result from above function. So now we can write in the print statement and a formatted one as shown here. This tuple statement is called as unpacking because it unpacks that tuple and assign each variable here. So if I execute it now, so this is how it shows. That is about tuples. So let us start with file handling, which involves reading from and writing to files. Files are the way to store and retrieve data persistently. For example, let us declare a variable. Say my_var. And assign 3, so this value will only be there or present in the memory until this program is executing. Once the program terminates, you will not have this variable and you will not have this value. For example, you wanted to store a data of a students in a class. So you can write a program to take name, age and everything. After certain time, if you close the program, the data will be lost. For that purpose there are multiple ways. Example, if you have a database, you can store the data in the database, but the other way would be handling it through the file. Also, if there are any logs, we can write it to the files and these files can be stored in your desktop or in the server. We can do a backup and if we can also read these files from different programs. So that's the reason file handling is very important. Let us go to the directory and create a text file. For example, called as my_file.txt. And write hello world and save this file. Now I will declare a variable called file and we have a keyword called open and we want to pass file name as the first parameter which we have created just now. This can be path as well. And also the second input parameter will be either R for read, W for write and A for append. Let us start with read access and write R. After this you can create another variable called content and now from the file we have a method called read to read the content. Now, we can print this variable content and execute it. It reads the data from the file and prints. This is the text we have written in the file. Now, instead of read, let us try write. So for that we have to change this to W. Let us remove these statements and write. File.write function which will take string as input. Write the text hello, welcome to the course. So the other point I wanted to mention is that every time after you open the file, you should close the file. For that, we have method close. So open the file, write the file and close the file. Let us execute this program. Let us open the file and see the text got updated. Basically, the write function will overwrite the text. But I don't want to overwrite the text, instead add the text. For that, we can use append and you can try to see what happens. But before that, I want to mention another point. But you see here, there is a possibility that we may not close the file and forget about it. So, we have an alternative way of doing this. So the same syntax can be applicable to read and write as well. We will start with a keyword. And use open method and give the file name and mode, append, that is a, and write as, and variable file, which can be anything. So, this will open the file myfile.txt and append the text, which we have written. And automatically close the file when all the statement under this block are completed. Let us write file.write function. And add the text hello again. And also we want to add it in new line, so write the special character /n. And it is the time to execute the program. The program executed. Open the text file and see we have 2 lines. Now, let us try to read the input from the user and update the file. For that, we can write an input statement which you already know. Let us go to the write statement and add the variable name. And we can also do the formatted string way with f. So, the name will be taken as input from user. And writes to the file as name:name. Let us execute the program. See, it asks for the input. Let us enter Web Wonders. And enter. Open the text file and you can see that the Web Wonders will be added as last line. What if you wanted to do this multiple times and terminates when user types quit? For that we will write while true, which you know already. And keep the below code under this block. Write if condition, that if name is equal to quit, then break. So if someone writes quit, it should break the loop and stop asking user for more input. If not, it should add more data into the file. Let us execute this function. Enter the name Alice and press enter. See, it asks for the input again. Let us enter some couple of names. And enter quit. See, the program terminates here. Go to the file and see the information. See, I have pasted another code here, where we will read the file which we have written just now. See the output. So this is very important concept you should also learn. There are some mini projects videos as well in my channel. Please go through and practice as they cover most of these concepts. Also, please like, subscribe the video.